Great. People should be starting to come in now. Hello, hello. Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes just to see who else we've got coming on. Great. Nice. So where's everyone joining from? I'm in slightly drizzly, dreary Buckingham in the United Kingdom. Oh, Bav, I didn't know you were in St Albans. That's not too far from me.
Oh, I can talk, sorry. Yes.
You can talk, yes. That's not too far. Cool. Oh, great. We've got quite a few from the US. Good morning. Cool, cool, cool. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. I am Bryony Mulcairn. I'm Community Manager at SentiSum, and welcome to our webinar on bridging the gap between product and support. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction on the platform that we're using. You've already found the emojis, some people, and the confetti. So yeah, the platform we're using is super interactive, it's super fun. You'll see the emojis down below, which you're welcome to use whenever you like, just to react to what you're hearing. There's also a chat function down below, so you can use that to chat, comment, whatever you like. And in the same sort of area, you should see a Q&A box. So in the Q&A box, you can put in any questions that you have throughout the webinar. You can also upvote other people's questions if you see something that you like the look of. I'm going to be addressing the Q&A at the end of the questions that I have for Liz and Bav. If you find that you've put in a question and then it gets answered naturally throughout the webinar, you can also delete it if it's no longer relevant, but I'll come to that at the end. So great to meet everyone. Let's get started. I'm here today with Liz and Bav. We're really excited to be talking about how Hopin are closely aligning their customer support and product teams using customer support data to make sure their strategies are centered on their customers' needs. Like the little money emoji there. Among their other processes and systems, Hopin do use SentiSum to analyze their customer support topics. They might touch on an element of that and how they use that in their feedback cycle today. And if it does pique your interest and you want to know a little bit more about SentiSum, please feel free to hang back for a few minutes after the Q&A, and I'll be bringing on SentiSum product owner Kirsty in case anyone has any questions or they want to see a little bit of a demo on what the platform looks like. So then, without further ado, welcome Liz and Bav. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your roles at Hopin?
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for me. Excited to be here. I'm Liz Pastor. I think my career can be summed up as customer experience. So I started out in product management and product marketing roles, grew into product leadership roles, was chief product officer for a company called AllConnect, before pivoting into support leadership roles. And so I led support at MailChimp for many years, and now I lead product support and services at Hopin.
Excellent. And Bav, would you like to do the same?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having us, Bryony. I'm Bav. I'm Director of Analytics at Hopin as well. I guess my background is kind of like very product oriented, but from an analytics perspective. So for the sort of like last 7 or 8 years, I've been working very closely with product engineering design teams to help them really help, really to quantify the customer experience and like user behavior through quantitative analysis. And actually, it was when I joined Hopin, that we started working more closely together with Liz's team, and the world of sort of like CS and analytics and qualitative data and quantitative data really started to merge for me, at least properly anyway.
That's excellent. I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about that throughout the webinar. So Hopin, where Liz and Bav are from, is an event technology platform. And actually the platform that we're using right now, Session, is a new development by Hopin. So if you like it, feel free to go and check it out afterwards. So while today we're going to be talking about how Hopin have aligned their product and support teams in the tech space, where things are generally quite fast moving, product teams are constantly looking for ways to improve and innovate and evolve, the ways of working we're going to talk about are likely to be relevant to all different kinds of businesses. So any questions are welcome that would help you in your own organisation. But the reason we're talking about this topic specifically and why it's so important to talk about the relationship between product and support teams and those being closely aligned is all teams within an organisation impact the customer experience in some way. If sales implement a new offer, if legal change the terms of a contract, then it all impacts the customer. But none of those more directly than product teams making changes and improvements to the product or service that the customers are paying for. So, Liz, my first question for you is, your career background has been very closely linked with product. How would you say your background has shaped your outlook on interdepartment collaboration and how support and product impact one another?
Yeah. It's coming into support has been so humbling for me, and learning so much about how really the departments are incredibly intertwined, and just impact each other so much. And so, seeing this, you just mentioned it, right? A change that happens in the product then increases the number of tickets to support, or a change in decreases the number of tickets. And, what I think is not done enough, and I think there's a huge opportunity, is to have more of a partnership there and to have more common goals and alignment amongst teams, so that not only can they rally together when that ticket volume goes up, but also celebrate together when changes occur as well.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you've pointed out there celebrating together and sharing those wins as well. That is super important. Bav, from your perspective as an analytics director, why do you think close collaboration with customer support is critical to the success of, in particular, a product company like Hopin?
Liz took my word, humbling. That's my word. But I think having come into Hopin from other companies, I've been fortunate to work with like large data sets, and at the same time, that's held me back from this really rich data source that sits within our CS team and all of this qualitative data that Liz and her team collect, whether it's through SentiSum or whatever it is. And joining Hopin was a humbling experience in the sense that we are maybe a 3-year-old company. We didn't have core analytics in place, and to some extent we still don't. We're still building up our analytical capabilities and our event tracking and understanding what users are doing. So my team and I, we spend a lot of time exploring how we could bridge those gaps and fill those areas where we were unable to answer the questions with quantitative data. So speaking to Liz's team and using the data that her and her team have available meant that actually we were able to learn a wealth of knowledge about our customers, what their pain points were, which historically we did through quantitative analysis, but now we actually have verbatim feedback directly from our customers. And actually I would argue that I say it's been a humbling experience. Actually, I feel like I've missed out in other parts, like in earlier parts of my career, where we haven't gone as in depth with the qualitative data that we do here at Hopin, because I feel like we probably left an inordinate amount of insight on the table just by not looking at this data. So for me, collaboration with customer support is it's something that's really humbled me. I've always felt like, no, I don't need it. We've got quantitative data, but actually I feel much better knowing what I know now.
I love that. It sounds like you're quite the advocate now for that close collaboration. So it's clear that there's this direct cause and effect relationship between these two departments, but it can be really tricky to figure out the best processes to create the best ways of working and share information in the best ways that support that. Liz, what challenges have you seen maybe previously in cross-department collaboration between product and support teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to communication and the teams kind of speaking the different languages and having different goals. And so how might you bring the teams together and look at this full picture as far as what everyone's trying to accomplish, and make sure that those goals align? Because as you step further and further from the company goals, a lot of times those goals don't intertwine between the departments. And so I think for leaders, it's really important to think about how you can align your different teams and your goals. And so like one of the examples that we've done at Hopin is one of the things that's really important to us is the number of events that our customers run and looking at those numbers of events. And that was important to our product team as well. Well, for a support team, the number of events is the biggest indicator of number of support tickets. And so understanding that was really important. And so to kind of start putting these together and understanding them together, we started looking at the ratio of number of support tickets per event. And that really gave us this understanding, this collaboration together, and looking at some of these numbers together for how successful customers are really being at running their event and executing a flawless event. So looking at those numbers that both teams cared about together.
Can I just add to that something,
Yeah.
Brownie, in this? So, I think one of the major challenges is that product teams traditionally treat CS data and analytics data as silos, and they approach us with individual problems as opposed to a group problem. And I think this unintentional, I'm going to say, this unintentional compartmentalization of our two function has meant that there's things that Liz's team are doing that we could supplement with quantitative data, and vice versa. The stuff that we're doing that could be supplemented with qualitative data. And I think as product managers, they shouldn't be looking at problems by department. They should be looking at actually, just the problem in itself, and maybe sharing it a bit more broadly than actually, what, this is a data problem, or this is a CS problem, and just bringing the problems to the table, so that the right people can talk to each other and say, oh, actually, hey, look, we have some data on this, or oh, we might know why this is happening.
Yeah, I love that example. These problems that happen throughout the company, although they might happen in individual departments, they're still affecting the company as a whole. And even though different individual departments might have their own targets and priorities, that doesn't mean that you should be working in a siloed way, because that's going to shield you from all the rich insights that your peers and colleagues might have. So Liz, just to follow up on that previous question, how do you now objectively look at the challenges that come in and identify opportunities for improvement?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest keys to using support data is to be able to understand and categorize your tickets. You can do that manually, which I know is never fun for teams, but you can also do that through AI. We use SentiSum. And then being able to look at the deltas and the changes over time, right? So I think a mistake that people make is they say like, okay, we've got all of these tickets. And the most of our tickets, like if we're talking about the session product here, the majority of our tickets are about the stage. Well, of course they're about the stage because that's the thing everyone is using no matter what. Maybe there's going to be less tickets about the Q&A feature. But if you look at the data and these categorizations of data over time and see the impact of the changes, you might be able to see something happen and the number of tickets about your QA section doubled or tripled, right? Wow. Now that becomes an insight, and that's something that you need to be able to look into, and you want to be able to understand why did those tickets increase so sharply, so suddenly? Or maybe stage decreased by 50% because they made a change that just made it easier for people to view the webinar, the thing that's happening, and that should be celebrated. And so it's really in looking at your data over time for support teams and understanding those categories that's going to make all the impact in how you use that data with product teams.
Absolutely.
Sorry, can I jump in again?
Of course you can.
I promise I don't love the sound of my own voice. In fact, I hate it. I think what Liz says is great. It's absolutely true as well. And I think one of the things that we learned. I was working with someone on Liz's team, and we were looking at some data. I was working with, I think it was Gareth, Liz, and we were looking at all of the tickets and how they've been raised. And actually, as Liz said, most of the tickets will be about a feature that has hundreds and thousands of users, so we're naturally going to see that. But actually, what we realized was when we were looking at some of this data, that's there were pockets of areas where we were seeing low volumes of tickets, but the total time to close was significantly higher, which meant that actually it was taking the CS teams a lot longer to close those types of tickets. Where some of the ones where they're raising, like where there's a lot of tickets being raised, but it's BAU and they can close them fairly quickly. So actually, I think when you start objectively looking at, just to answer your question, when you start objectively looking at all of your challenges, you can start to you can start to understand like actually where are the real problems, because it starts to surface actually this stuff, it's okay, we know it's going to be easy enough to close, but all of a sudden we've got this area that's suddenly starting to rise, and then on top of that we can then quantify it, because not everyone will raise these tickets with Liz's team. It'll just be the people who are really pissed off that will probably raise these tickets. But actually, if we see that this element of this feature is going through hundreds and thousands of users, we can then add a magnitude element to it as well. So actually, how serious is this problem, and then start to quantify it as well. Sorry, I jumped in for no reason.
No, you're welcome to. I encourage it. So you're looking at multiple different ways that you can interpret this data. There's the amount of contacts that you're getting, but you have to put the subjective view on that of, okay, but a lot of people are using this side, so it makes sense that a lot of people would potentially talk about this over this. But then you've also got your time to resolution, your increases and decreases in ticket volumes and things as well. That's excellent. So Bav, let's look at this from an analytical perspective. It's all well and good knowing we need to harness data, but what are the barriers to leveraging the right balance of quantitative and qualitative data for product teams? Is it technology, awareness? Is it culture?
I think I'm probably going to go with culture here, because for the large part, the technology exists. So, and a lot of the technology that's being created in this day and age, it's quite intuitive. I think I spent half an hour with our product manager on SentiSum, and I was able to pick up SentiSum quite easily. So it wasn't rocket science. I think the interface was quite intuitive to understand. Maybe awareness to some extent, but I think this largely comes down to a cultural issue. And I touched on it earlier, so I'm just repeating myself. But I think a big challenge is that product teams, design teams, they look at the problems that they're facing with the lens of data or a CS team or a research team, and they don't realize that actually there's probably like many ways to skin a cat, but more importantly, actually, if you bring all of those cats together, you can skin them all at once, right? It's a horrid analogy, but but I genuinely think this is a cultural thing, and maybe it's lack of awareness, but I genuinely think if product managers took like 5-10 minutes extra to not go into sort of like this BAU default mode where it's instinctive, like, okay, this is a quant problem, I'm going to throw it to Bob, or this is a CS problem, I'm going to throw it to Liz. They might actually find themselves like being able to like come to all of us with the problems. Hey, this is what we're trying to solve for the customer. What's the best way forward to solve it? So I think it's largely a cultural issue, because the quant and qual work together in other areas seamlessly. I've heard research teams and like data teams talk quite openly and harmoniously about their relationships with the research, with their research counterpart. Why shouldn't that be the case for CS teams and data teams as well? So I don't know. For me, this is a cultural thing as opposed to anything else.
I want to add to that too. I think that, the product manager, having been in putting on my product manager hat, you are, a product manager has so much data and information and inputs and requests coming at them, right? They've got asks from customers, they've got asks from design, from engineering, from product, and leadership, right? And they are trying to prioritize all of these different areas. And so one of the things that we've done, and that I think, support and customer facing teams, go to market teams have the ability to do, is to pull all of their requests together and bring, come at it at one voice when they're bringing information to product teams. Otherwise, you're putting that all on the product manager or product leadership to say, well, gosh, I've got this request from sales, this request from customer success, this request from support, and have them do all that weighting as far as what's actually most important. And if the teams can come together and give that and hand that over, you've just alleviated a lot of that work for them. And you're truly lending your voice as far as what is most critical for the customer.
And I think, I'm being quite harsh on product managers, but I think I'll take some of the blame as well. Like when we, if we do a piece of work that's insightful, I think we could probably do a better job sharing it with other teams as well. Like, hey, here are some insights we've learned from our data, and there might be someone in some part of the organization that could pick up and say, oh, hey, we know why that's happening. So I should hold my hand up a little bit. I'm mostly blameless in the situation, but I will take some small slice of accountability.
Yeah, but having that data all centrally, I guess, will enable that. And that's really, really, really key. So they can go in and self-serve this information. And then you've got that unified voice that's unbiased and is based purely on, the data. How are people behaving? What are customers saying? What sentiment is this evoking from them? And when you first answered, Bav, you used a really key word there, which was instinctive. So product managers and everyone really is going through this instinctive process of, this is how I do my job. This is how I prioritize in my own head. So that cultural aspect comes into changing those ways of working as well to optimize. So I think that was a really, really key point you raised. I have a little question for the audience now. Let me just pop it in the chat here. So I would like to know, how do you analyze your customer support data? I know that some people harness technology for this sort of thing to like SentiSum to pull out insights and things. Some people have their manual tagging processes and then pull all that information into somewhere central. Some people do this on like a weekly meeting sort of thing where you go and verbally tell this information. So I'd really like to know what the different approaches that people in the audience have to this. And I'll leave that question up for a minute. I do have another question for you, Liz. I want to give you a little scenario. Let's say the product team's been working on this fantastic new release or an update and it's finally gone live. The CS teams, they're going to be the first ones to get that, to feed back to you. You're going to get that customer sentiment on how they actually feel about that product release. How are you then ensuring that all those critical insights are shared with the product team at the most optimal time?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'm going to back up with your question and first say, I love to see product and support teams working together early and often. It's always my goal. So I would hope that when it's being released, it's not the first time the support team's seeing it, that it is that we've been partnering together all along the way and giving feedback in all different steps, from like wireframes to full on to partnering together as far as the release planning. My favorite way to do this, especially if it's a major feature and you have a large enough team, is to put a SWAT team around it, to put this team that has been, hopefully partnering with the product team all along the way, but then is a dedicated team that is taking those customer questions about that specific area. They've been more heavily trained and involved and able to answer questions better and easier for our customers. And then you've got this concentrated group of folks that are able to give that feedback. Hopefully you have a Slack channel or something else open that you can be giving that feedback. But then what I've done is at the end of the week, give a weekly wrap up as far as, okay, these are the number of tickets we've received. These were the main topics. Here's some customer verbatims to really to make sure that feedback loop is going.
That's fantastic. So in your optimal scenario, the support team should already be aware of this. They should know what releases are coming out. And then that way you can kind of have that constant feedback going on to check in and make sure that this is being received well.
Yeah.
Great. Samir says, support engineers tag each ticket with a component which represents the area of the product or feature the ticket is tied to. This allows us to analyze which features are causing the most friction with customers and can deep dive from there to understand what problems with those features are. And we can report back to product or engineering to make improvements to reduce this friction. That sounds like a nice way of doing it. What do you think, Bav? Is that a good way of doing it? Just put you on the spot.
I was just reading it. No, yeah, you have. I was literally just reading it again. Support engineers tag each ticket with a component which represents which area of the product feature the ticket is tied to. This allows us to analyze which features are causing restriction. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think the challenge with this, however, is that it's it requires a high level of buy-in from the support engineers, because if I hope you haven't got a product that's flooded with support tickets day in and day out. But if you have, I think there's always that risk that things will get missed, or that it's poorly categorized using just like inconsistent nomenclature of like whatever that component might be, and then whether it's scalable. But I think in the absence of like technology, I think that's a fantastic way to do it.
Excellent. And Ale says that being in the gaming industry with a lot of product experiments and new features, starting with tickets tagged under subcategories in determining which tickets are specific to the product/feature. Manual tagging is next to better understand the overall sentiment and/or issues. Awesome. And David says they use a combination of SentiSum and manual tagging. We then have regular calls of product squads where we can raise any insights we feel are relevant to our goals for the quarter, and we can create a better product together. Excellent. I love that. So thank you everyone who answered that question. It's always really good to get a little bit of insight on how people do this. Liz, just following on from our previous question, when it comes to the actual working relationship between the people in the product teams and support teams, how do you encourage a really good sort of open relationship and open communication there between individuals?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it is building that relationship before something happens. Support is a very reactive team, and so I really encourage my team members to go in and and build those relationships with the product teams before something occurs. We do shadowing. We love having product folks or folks from any part of engineering, product design, or the rest of the company come shadow our teammates and really see what they're doing, what they're managing on a daily basis. And I've never had a shadowing session where somebody isn't just like totally wowed or in awe of just what our support reps can handle and take on a daily basis. It's always, just so impressive to folks. And so I think those are a couple of key components to building that relationship is, if you're trying to build a relationship in the moment when something's launching, it's not going to work. You need that foundation and that trust over time. And then I think, going back to looking for those shared opportunities, those shared goals, those shared wins that you can have together, and celebrating those like team wide, and start seeing that, okay, wow, our teams work together and we're doing these things together, really is an opportunity to resonate with both departments and at a wider scale.
That's excellent. I love shadowing. Big fan of shadowing. Bav, I see you've unmuted for me. What have you got?
I was just gonna say it's because it's so easy to work with Liz. That's why I was just like, no wonder everyone wants, the PMs want to work with her. It's so lovable.
Oh, that's lovely.
I got you, Bav.
So that obviously helps, having some likable people in your teams who are nice to work with. But yeah, I have to agree with you on that shadowing part. I've been a customer support agent myself, and whenever people would come in and sit with you and look at the calls and the emails and things, they always end up learning something totally new. And oh my God, I had no idea that's how the customers felt about this. And yeah, absolutely blows their mind. So wholeheartedly agree with that and encourage that.
Yeah. And anytime you can use verbatims or if you have phone support and can use, the clips from the calls and things along those lines, like it's so incredibly powerful just to show, not tell, that customer experience.
Yeah, definitely be able to hear it straight from the customer, for sure. So Bav, a question for you. How are you sort of looking into your customer support insights to help departments inform decisions? without getting lost in sort of mountains of data, because you can't surface absolutely everything to product. You might, be completely overwhelmed with what you've got there. So how do you whittle that down?
So I think there's obviously the fluffy answer to this, but I'm gonna I'll give the realistic answer. So I think first and foremost is like one of the things that my team do is ensure that we have regular cadence of reporting to our product team, and that's not just customer support insights. This is quantitative insights, customer support insights, NPS insights, CES insights, whatever you want to call it. We bring it together, and I tend to share this fortnightly update. Sometimes it contains CS information, sometimes it doesn't. We also have a monthly MBR review. So someone in Liz's team and myself, we come together and we bring all of our sort of like core insights together from CS, from NPS, from CES. So so we have this this ongoing like drip feeding of information. But there's all that's there. You can't always rely on people looking at it. Now, I think the reality of it is that product analytics, support, research, design, all of these functions, we are support functions. So whether a piece of insight makes it onto a product roadmap and prioritized onto a product roadmap, it's sometimes out of our control. Because if you think about how product teams actually work, a lot of product managers will have a 2-month, 3-month roadmap they've planned for the quarter based on all insights they've gathered from the previous quarter. So I think if you do find yourself in an environment where you're able to disrupt the product roadmap so dramatically with like every new insight, I think that's a bad product culture. Now, obviously, if there's some like dramatic insight that you find that's like earth-shattering and absolutely destroying the customer experience, then of course, fix it by all means. But generally, it's hard to say like if insights will be directly influence the product roadmap, because ultimately it's not our product roadmap. We provide these insights to people who make decisions, and we rely on them to make the best decision possible with the data and insights that they have at their fingertips. Now, if you've got someone who's really crap at making decisions, it's not really your fault. But I think realistically, like my team, this is a team, like all of these sort of like support function teams, we exist to ensure that decision makers are able to make the best decisions possible. And I always say to myself, if I'm not happy with what's happening, I can always become a decision maker and transition to a product role. I don't think I want to, but that's the reality of the situation, is that sometimes we find things that always, don't always end up influencing the roadmap. And if they do, it won't be an immediate response. It'll be, okay, great, we'll add it onto sort of like the next quarter's review as we're doing discovery sessions and things like that. So I think that's sort of like my brutally realistic answer about the reality of product development.
I think you talked a little bit about our MBR and what we've done, but I think we've been on a journey as far as improving this and the way we communicate with products. So I'll flesh out a little bit more about what we do. So for our monthly business review, we wanted to bring these customer insights to the table. And the way it started was we were bringing insights from our net promoter score and our closed loss report and support and success, and kind of had all of these different areas. And you're reading this review and there's insights from multiple areas. And again, what I was talking about earlier, it's like, okay, can you do that work for the product manager and really highlight what the most important things are? And so we started taking those and really gathering from all of these different places that we were getting customer feedback, not just support, but all of these different places, and taking and creating a list and creating this top 10 list. And we would bring folks from across go-to-market to weigh in on this and have conversations about it. And then we frame them as customer problems to solve. We didn't frame them as features or functionalities for the product team to build, because as Bab was just alluding to, like, that's really engineering and product's job, is to understand, okay, we can say this is the problem our customers are having, but for them to figure out the solution and empower them to be the owners of what that solution is. And so from there, getting to this list of kind of like 10 to 15 really customer problems to solve, we then send out a survey to all of our go-to-market teams, sales, customer success, support, and ask them to weigh in on the prioritization of it. And so we know we've got, these are the most important things, but how would we stack rank these? And getting that stack ranking by team, and then bringing that into the MBR. And then before the MBR is presented to leadership, having product weigh in on like, this is something we're addressing, this is something we're not addressing, and being able to follow that over time. And doing that survey, we look at that monthly, but then doing that survey on a quarterly basis, because it isn't going to change that fast and disrupt the roadmap that fast. But it's been such a more powerful way to take that voice of customer data and bring it into the product teams.
I think that getting product to add a voiceover onto it beforehand is probably just so that they don't get burnt in the live MBR session with like our CEO or something like that. It's just that they're fully aware. Yeah.
I love the answers both of you have given there. I found that really, really interesting, because my perspective here in understanding this relationship between product and support, my background comes from support, and I have the knowledge of the tech from working at SentiSum and how that can be used for the insights. But the product side of it and how the inner workings happen, you have experience with that, Liz. Bav, I don't know the analytics side of it and how that works from your job description. So that to me is super, super interesting. And having that reminder of product, own the product strategy. And we're not here to tell them what to do. We're just here to surface those insights, surface that information, and try and influence and just make sure that any strategies that are coming up are customer centric, and they are coming back to making sure our customers are at the forefront of everything that we're doing. So that to me was super interesting.
I think, yeah, I'm just, I've always, I remember someone asked me this question a while ago, and I have an analogy for, at least for my team, but I've just realized it actually applies to Liz's team as well. If you've ever seen the movie The Godfather, have you guys all seen that?
No, but I know I'm going to love this. Come on. I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay, so the role of the Godfather is like that's of the product manager. And I don't want to inflate any product managers that are on there that are on this call, right? Like, I don't want to give you an ego boost. But ultimately, the role of the product manager is like that of the Godfather. The role of the product analytics team and even the CS team is that of the consigliere. So he's like the person who knows everything about the family business, who they're going to whack, who they're going to like, where the money's coming from, all of that stuff. And their role is to advise the Godfather on what to do next, right? Now, whether he does it or they do it or not is up to them. But the consigliere is one of the most important roles in the movie of The Godfather, because he knew everything about the family business. He isn't a member of the family, but he knows everything. So that's I kind of see product analytics, CS, research, all of these teams playing that role of the consigliere. Anyway, that's my. I think it's a good analogy, actually. I'm not going to like downplay it. I think it's an excellent analogy, actually.
Oh, that is a good analogy. Who's Liz then? Where does Liz fit into this?
Well, Liz would be another consigliere. I mean, Liz could probably be the Godfather, for all I know. But I think it's probably the consigliere role as well. So she knows everything there is to know, and she advises the product team, just like we do. And then they make the decisions for better or for worse.
Hopefully for better. What an absolute good team. Thanks for that, Bav. So Liz, do you have any examples of any strategies or updates in the product that have come directly from customer feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm still thinking about
the Godfather thing. I'm really struggling as well.
Yes, there's been many, and I think one of the things I was just thinking about as Bob was talking about is part of the role of product too, is to think about how much are we investing in new features and new functionality versus like the maintenance and the kind of optimization of our current features and functionality. So one of my favorite examples of changes for a product happened when I was working at a company. We launched a new landing page feature, and for product teams, it's very important to launch like as early as possible. When a customer can start getting value, but not too much value, right? You don't want it baking for too long. You want to start getting that direct customer feedback. And so we launched this landing page feature, and it was super simple. And we had this SWAT team, what I spoke of earlier, that was giving this direct feedback. And what the feedback we were hearing from customers is that they loved it, but it didn't do enough. The page just couldn't do what they wanted. And the number one thing people wanted was to be able to embed videos on the page. And so we heard this from customers. The SWAT team gave the product team this feedback, and they had thought about embedding videos, but it was way further down on their roadmap. But they pulled that up and a couple other features up in their roadmap and immediately released, very quickly, fast followed and released this video feature. What made it even more powerful, though, was we had all these tickets from these customers requesting these features, and we were able to circle back with those customers and send them an email and say, hey, we heard you. You asked for this feature. It's now available. Go check it out again. And so not only did we create this really magical customer experience, but it also then helped the product team with their adoption numbers, because they were looking at how many people were using this new landing page feature. So it was just this really magical thing that we should all be doing more often, and like closing that feedback loop for our customers.
I bet they took all the credit as well.
It was truly an amazing collaboration. When you get those magical times, it's so awesome.
I love that. And I love that you've mentioned about getting the feedback on how customers are responding to it once they have put it out as well, because it doesn't just end once it's been released. It might not be quite the way that you were imagining. It might not quite be user friendly. So it's so important to continue to have that conversation and see if it is optimal. Awesome. So I have a question for both of you now before we move on to the Q&A. What do each of you think are the results and benefits of harnessing your customer support data and working collaboratively across departments in this data-led, customer-centric way?
I can start. I think retention, right? Retention is a huge benefit to this. The customers who bought your product today, who are coming into support, bought the product that you have, and you're hearing feedback exactly on the product that they purchased and getting that understanding of if it meets their needs or doesn't meet their needs. And so if you can be listening to that and continuing to improve, it improves your opportunity for retention down the road.
Excellent. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I love that Liz goes to the customer, always the customer first, whereas I'm thinking data and people, like in the teams within the company. I think the biggest part about sort of like cross-functional, cross-departmental collaboration, it's really around like keeping each other not in check, but ensuring that the best decisions are being made. And I'll give you an example. I used to work for a company called Photobox. So for anyone who's American, Photobox are the European equivalent of Snapfish. So if you know Snapfish, it's a similar product. And I remember I came across a problem in one of the areas of the website, and I took it to a product manager who owned that part of the website, and I said, hey, look, we found this. It's quite critical, actually. It's impacting a significantly high number of our customers just based on quantitative data. And they were working, and they basically said, oh, but we can't really look at this right now because we're working on this feature that came to us from the CS team about some customers had complained that they wasn't doing, and actually what the feature was we had a bunch of professional photographers who were using Photobox as a platform to sell their own products, so their own prints and things like that. And for a lot of those customers, they had hundreds of addresses that they needed to send pictures to and canvases to and photo books to. But it affected like a very tiny fraction of the people. And I think the purpose of like this sort of cross collaborative working, so coming back to in a long-winded way to answer your question, is that actually the product analytics side of things, we all know that that's the what, and people always say the research on this, like the qualitative feedback answers the why. But on the flip side as well, I think it's easy for a product manager to take a verbatim piece of feedback, something that one person has expressed, high level of this, they just didn't enjoy it or whatever, and run with that without really quantifying the magnitude of that problem. So I think when you bring these two areas together, actually you can say, well, this is an area that customers are raising a problem with, but but like, what is the size of that problem? And then you work with the quantitative team to say, oh, actually, you know what, this is something that's impacting thousands and thousands of people, or it's just impacting this one obscure segment of people who just happen to have found this one tiny bug. And you ensure that the decisions that you're making as a company are correct and you're prioritizing the most critical things first. So I think for me, it's really ensuring that decision making is optimized to its maximum possibility.
Yeah. And that's just the whole point, isn't it? Making sure that those decisions are being as well informed as physically possible for the best outcomes for everyone. Awesome. So I will now move on to Q&A. So everyone, you're in the chat, you might be in the chat at the moment, but there is a Q&A function. So if you want to put in any questions that you have or upvote any that anyone else has put in, then now is the time. And I will start asking these rather. Bav, I think you put this, you put this in from Anastasia. What are the Scrum rituals / meetings that you have between the product and support teams?
Yeah, so I can answer this. It's really dependent on the company. When I was at MailChimp, we actually had a role that was we called it a support product analyst, and it was a role that their job was to go to those different rituals and be part of the conversation, and again, all throughout that building process. And then they were communicating back and forth to the product teams. I think that if that's not possible, right, that's a heavy lift as far as headcount goes, depending on the size of your company and size of your team. I love, even before, new features and functionalities are being planned, having product managers come and sit with the support team and say, hey, I'm thinking, usually they know we're thinking about this area, right? What do you hear from customers about this area? And obviously we can pull support tickets and things like that, but just sitting down with some folks and doing a focus group and really understanding the opportunities in that area and being able to address it, I think is the biggest thing. And then I think support can really, look at those wireframes and like kind of when the designs and the ideas are starting to come together, and help think through, weigh in on like, oh, well, a customer might want to do this, or a customer is going to ask questions about this. And they're really great about thinking about, what challenges a customer might have during that.
That's great. And I think if you're having that open conversational setting, that also gives you the opportunity to put that subjective view on all of that data and get the input from the agents on.
Oh, and one more, retros, always retros. Support teams don't go to retros often enough, and they should absolutely be in part of team retros.
Awesome. Anastasia, I hope that answers that for you. If not, please let me know, or please put another question in. I'll mark that as answered though. Kirsty popped a question in from Eccentric. Support usually gets a lot of users' requirements. How important are such requirements for the product team to build new features? Like how to check feature fitment for a larger audience. I hope I've read that right. But is there
I think this might kind of go back to my landing page example, right? I think that, it's it comes back to, I guess, I think the first thing, right, is one of the things, the challenges of support is you're getting questions from everyone. And a lot of times product managers are building the product for a specific user, a specific type of user, their like ideal customer. And so really, but understanding, how many customers are asking for that product requirement, or that new feature, what type of customer is it, being able to, again, quantify some of that, so that you can bring that information into the product teams.
Okay, cool, awesome. I will mark that one as answered as well. Eccentric, if that didn't answer your question, please let me know. Anastasia asked another one. How do you fix situations where there is no owner of a bug or a problem ticket?
I can take this one as well.
It's okay. Let's go for it. I'm really just a pretty face. That's all it is. I'm just here for the
yeah.
So, yeah.
At least I've always called, a feature that doesn't have an owner an orphan feature. And I would first challenge your company to say, why do we have orphan features and functionality? Because I truly believe if it's important enough to be on your platform, it needs to have an owner. That doesn't mean that you're actively always working on that feature and functionality, right? That's just not possible for tech companies. And so, but it doesn't mean that it still can't have a team that is responsible for it and responsible for owning and caring for it, so that when a bug or issue comes up, you're able to solve it. Now, if you haven't been able to make that argument yet or get to that resolution yet, then I think, really showing the customer impact, and you can tell that story of the customer impact. You can do that through, here's the number of tickets we're seeing about this. Here's the customer sentiment that we're seeing around this. Here is the value of those customers. Here's the ARR or dollar value for their contracts, however you measure that, and really being able to show and tell that story.
Right, that makes total sense. So if there's not a specific owner of a really specific area of the product, it should ideally come under some sort of umbrella that's taken care of by a person.
Yeah, like, this, they're actively working on this area, but they own all of these different things, so that if a bug does come up in that area, and if you don't, like, that's where you got to take it to product leadership and say, hey, you don't have an owner for this. Here's all these issues it's causing. And here's the story that I just laid out. And how are we going to solve this together?
Awesome. So if they don't have one, get one. It's essentially cool. I wish I knew some Godfather references, because I'm sure there's one for that situation. Bav, this is the rest of my day now. It's just
that could be a competitor trying to whack you. Right?
I'm just gonna start talking like this all the rest of the day.
Well, you advised that, Bav. So if someone's out to get me, I'm like blaming you guys. You said you're in charge of that.
It's probably one of your competitors, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. So from Samir, how do you bring product analytics together with support data?
I think this comes down to just having teams who are inquisitive. I think if you're doing, and I'm not sure I understand the question properly. Are you talking about product analytics, a team working with support data, or are you talking about product analytics as in the data with support data? I'm going to assume it's the latter. But if you've got teams who are inquisitive, trying to understand the why, that's a really healthy starting point. Having your quant teams trying want to not just answer the what, but actually why is this happening, and looking for I genuinely think data people should be data hungry, right? Like, actually, in fact, they should be data greedy. They should be looking for insights wherever they can find them, and they shouldn't just rely on their on the data sources they're comfortable with. They should be looking to understand, like, hey, what are the NPS scores saying? Hey, what are the CS feedback saying? So I would start with there. But also, if you need a way to quantify support data, so this is a slightly, if you mean this, this comes down to, and I could give a whole talk on this. I'll summarize it. But your sort of like your data collection strategy, if you're unable to quantify the on-site experience with event level tracking. When I say event level here, I mean sort of like clicks, scrolls, interactions, etc. It becomes hard to bring that together with support data, because you can't quantify it. So I think this comes down to like having a very solid product analytics and event tracking strategy, which is probably not the call to discuss that, but I would say those are your two options: like very, very hungry data people, or a very solid data tracking strategy.
Awesome. And Samir, if you did want to elaborate, if that wasn't quite what you meant, please feel free to pop another question in. Sharad asks, what do you do as a support leader when the product is not prioritizing one of the bugs causing a lot of customer friction?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to that very similar to that orphaned feature and functionality. And I think it is, again, looking at how you can quantify it and how you can really tell the story as far as the issue that the bug is causing. So, we had an example where we had at a company I worked for, had a terrible process for password retrieval. It was like a 13 step process to get your password. It was so incredibly painful. And we sat engineering down and had them watch a customer go through this password retrieval process. And in less than 24 hours, we had it was reduced from like 12 or 13 steps down to 5, I think. And so again, it's like, how do you tell that story? And making sure you're not just saying like, but there's a bug, right? It's about like showing that the customer pain that it's causing, quantifying whether it's the time that support is spending on these tickets, the satisfaction that customers have, the dollar value, like really just taking it so much more than just saying there's a bug, right? Just paint that picture.
Yeah, I love that answer. That's fantastic. And what a really good way to do it as well. I was going, look
Yeah.
what happens. Right, we've just got time for this one last question. David says, any thoughts on the importance of support tooling for support teams? Product can be so focused on new features for customers, building internal tools for support to actually help customers troubleshoot issues can be not a priority. Any advice?
David.
Can I just quickly say on this one, actually?
Yeah, go for it.
You should be encouraging as many complaints but you should be making it easy for your customers to contact you first and foremost. It should be super easy for them to contact you, in my opinion, because then you know what's upsetting them. If you have customers who are unhappy and are just going without telling you why, you have a problem, in my humble opinion.
On this, I'm curious, and Liz, you can answer, but I'm just curious. Is building a support tool the right solution? Because I imagine there must be enough products out there that can do this. Like, surely this is a commodity at this stage, and you wouldn't build your CRM platform from scratch. You wouldn't build your experimentation platform from scratch. Building a support tool, is that the right solution? Surely, like, is buying not the right option? Sorry, maybe I'm being naive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, David, first of all, I feel your pain. So I think David's talking about, like the back end and admin systems that allow a support team to then help the customers, right? And a lot of times what can happen is, as product teams are, building out features and functionality, they want to, I talked about getting that stuff early and often out to the market. Well, they can, the tool's ready to be out to the market, but is all the tools that the support team needs ready ready for market. And so I think can definitely be a challenge. To your point, Bev, there are admin systems and things like that you can purchase off the shelf, and obviously you have to configure that to your system, but it makes it much easier. And so I think, the biggest way that I've made the argument for, I think it's twofold. I think the most powerful way I've seen support teams set up, is having a small team, support tooling team. It doesn't have to be more than a couple of folks, a couple of engineers and designer, and then somebody from support being that product owner for the area. But having that small team that's kind of working on day-to-day things, but then can swarm when a new feature is being released. So when we're talking about that landing page feature, having your own internal support tooling team then swarm with that landing page team to then be working side by side with them to create the internal tools that you need to help customers. And that's where I didn't mention it. We were talking about the landing page feature, but that's where also the SWAT team can be really helpful in understanding, as whether you're releasing in beta or you're releasing in other ways, to say, hey, not only do customers need this, but support support needs this, and we don't have all the tools that we need. So making that case for support tooling is really important, and showing, I think the most powerful way to make that case and to make that argument is with your standard support metrics, and showing the time it takes to serve customers, not being able to resolve customer issues, having to go to engineering to solve a customer problem versus support being able to solve it for themselves. And you can hopefully really build that case for support tooling.
I feel like we have the same pain, by the way. Product managers and product teams often release new features without putting event tracking in place, and then they'll ask us a month later how it's doing, and we'll be like, "Sorry, mate, this is you built your house on sand. Now you have to live on it."
Amazing. Well, those are all the questions that we have time for. Thank you everyone who's joined and who's asked a question. You will be receiving a copy of the recording in your inbox in the next sort of day or two so that you can share it if you want to. I apologize that we're coming right up to time here. If anyone has any questions about the SentiSum platform, I'm going to invite my colleague Kirsty onto the stage now to have I'm going to invite Kirsty onto the stage now, who's a SentiSum product owner, to answer any questions anyone has about SentiSum, if people do have time to stay behind or they are curious. But if you do need to jump off and you have any questions we haven't had time to get to, you are more than welcome to email me at bryony@sentisum.com, BRYONY. I'll pop it in the chat as well. Or just reach out on the website and we can have a chat there, on LinkedIn, or wherever you can find me. But thank you so much, Liz and Bav. It's been so fun chatting to you guys, and I've really enjoyed everything that you've had to say. Kirsty, please do come onto the stage. I'll invite you now.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Bryony. I've done a shameless plug in the chat, by the way. Thanks all. Bye.
Haven't we all?
Hey, Kirsty, thanks for joining.
Hey.
So I can see we've still got a few people here. If anyone has any questions about SentiSum, please pop your questions in the chat. Otherwise, I will let Kirsty, I'll leave the stage quickly and just let Kirsty say her little piece.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to go through basically what SentiSum is all about just for a few minutes. And then if you want any more information, you can always reach out to us on the website, and you can book a demo from there. I'm just going to give you a quick overview because I think it's really important what Bav and Liz was saying around basically like partnering product and support, but there's a lot of barriers that come with that as well. And the main one is the data wrangling and the reporting and trying to manually tag support conversations, or if you're a product person trying to access those support conversations when they're like locked away in Zendesk or something else. So that's kind of what SentiSum solves, is basically bringing all these surveys and support conversations together and in one platform, and feeding it through this AI system that can like really objectively categorize your support tickets, survey responses, and then you can see it in one like really easy to view and access platform. So I'm gonna try and share my screen. Cool. So basically, here we go. Starting from the end. So I mean, Bavan has touched on this, right? We've got like varied and really siloed customer insight sources. They are also kind of subjective as well. Like manual tagging can, it has that really good agent knowledge, but it can be a little bit subjective. And then it also, when you're doing all this reporting manually and trying to like get customer insights to different departments, the reporting that you will do is going to be limited and it might be ad hoc. And especially if you're in product, it's going to be difficult to like really dig into the data. So that's kind of, again, where SentiSum comes in. This is kind of how it works. You get all your data, pipe it in, and then the AI will recognize really interesting things that your customers are saying, such as like the discount didn't work, or like you got a wrong item in. And then the results here would be that you have like a 360 view on all your issues or feature requests. You can really understand like the impact of your project area in the business. And then you can also really work on that like proactive roadmap and shift your team from those like proactive customer-centric changes rather than being super like reactive when things go wrong. So I'll just quickly show you what this can look like. So here in the dashboard, we can basically see all these insights coming through. We can see lots of support tickets coming in, and then you can also look at your overall trends. So you can see, maybe we've got like accessibility issues. We're not able to like upload or submit. And then we can also see the spikes in these as well. And we can start to see like, okay, your support conversations are coming in. And like this could be your early warning system to product to say, hey, we're having like a big spike in unable to upload or submit issues. And you can get that to them straight away. So that then, like Bav said, you can then start to connect the dots maybe with your project analytics and see like, okay, what's the wider impact of this? So that's kind of one way that you can use it. And for project teams, this is a great place to just get a 360 overview of like across the whole customer journey. Where are the friction points? And one thing that you can do then is like basically personalize this data as well. So maybe you just want to look at your accessibility issues, for example. You can quickly access and personalize reports and then share these with others in the business as well, so that you can then see, hey, what's affecting accessibility? What's like blocking people from unlocking the value of the product, for example? And then you can even start to set your own KPIs around this as well. So, accessibility, that's, contributing 900 tickets in this period. What can we do to start reducing those and to improve the customer experience? And you've got your answers right here. So I won't go into it all today. That's kind of everything I want to show. But you can, click in, dig in, look at all the conversations. You can really do root cause analysis a lot in SentiSum as well. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks.
Hi, Bonnie.
I've been calling these fireworks for ages and then back onto who knew? But that was awesome. Yeah, as Kirsty said, it does go into super, super granular detail if you did want to find out, okay, they're having accessibility issues, but what kind of accessibility issues? And what are the key things driving that? And how are customers feeling? What's their sentiment? So it goes into that as well. But if you'd like to see that in a bit more detail, please reach out to us. Kirsty, do you mind if I plug your email in here?
Yes, go for it.
Do it anyway. So Kirsty's email is in the chat there. If anyone wants to have a bit more of a demo on the platform or has any other questions about how it could help you in your specific use cases, please do reach out. But thank you very much everyone for joining, and thank you everyone who stayed behind. I appreciate we've gone a little bit over here, so I really, really appreciate everyone's time. And I hope everyone has a lovely day.
And thank you, Bryony, for such a good conversation.
Oh, thanks, Kirsty. I'm gonna go and watch The Godfather now because I can't think of anything else.
I know, I'm gonna have to go and watch it. I feel very like culturally inept right now.
Yeah, I need to get some quotes ready. Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.